All right, we can go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our family support series tonight here at George Mason University. Tonight's topic is going to be related to the FAFSA and financial aid and everything surrounding that and all the questions that you have. So before we get started and talk about how the night is going to go, we're going to do first just a quick round of introductions. So hello, everyone. My name is Mackenzie Nelson. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Assistant Director of Family Programs in the Office of New Student and Family Programs. And I will pass it over to Camille and Kara to introduce themselves as well.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Camille Clark. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am the Associate Director of Family Programs.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kara Williams. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the family coordinator for New Student Family Programs.
Great. And like I said, tonight's topic is everything FAFSA financial aid. So tonight we have a representative from the Office of Financial Aid at George Mason University, Dan Frank, and I will pass it over to you to introduce yourself as well.
Thank you very, very much. So yes, my name is Dan Frank. I am from the Office of Student Financial Aid. I am the Senior Assistant Director. I have been in financial aid now for a whopping 16 years, 13 here at Mason. I'm here to kind of guide through some of your questions. I know a lot has changed. I'm expecting a lot of good questions. I am hoping to have most of the answers. But if I can't, I'm going to explain why as we go through the process. As long as you've been able to get that FAFSA in, or if the corrections need to be made, we'll talk about that tonight as well. But I'm very happy to be here.
Great. So how the night's going to go, we have about an hour for you all. We're going to start with some kind of pre-made questions that I know we've been getting a lot through the university, and we want to make sure those are addressed. So we'll be asking those. But as we go along, if you have additional questions that you'd like to be asked, at the bottom part of your screen, there is a Q&A button. You'll go ahead and use the Q&A function to add any questions that'll come directly to us. And Kara and Camille will be helping to answer them live. And we can also come back to them at the end and answer them and ask Dan any questions that you all might have. So again, if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A and we will answer them there. So to get started, the first question I have for you, Dan, is we're going to really get it started here with what has changed about the FAFSA this year and why is it changing? And then in addition to that, what's staying same with the FAFSA this year?
Okay, so pretty much everything is changing. We're going to start there. Where does it end? Everybody gets financial aid of some kind. That's where it stays the same. So everything, for the most part, in the entire industry for what I have been doing for years has changed. The FAFSA application, for example, the FAFSA process that was created, the FAFSA form that was online and has been online for years now. It's been since the early 90s. That needed an overhaul. Most of the time you see information from the Department of Education, especially when it comes to the world of financial aid, and it's usually done every 4 to 6 years. It has been over 18 years since anything has been done. Back in 2018, 2019, and into 2020, we started seeing Congress take action on certain higher education products. So there was the Consolidated Appropriations Act, which had the Future Act involved. And then at the same time, we had the Simplification Act. And what that did is it directed the Department of Ed to, over the next 4 academic years, completely update certain information that was asked on the FAFSA, which could be done through the first couple of years. But then by 2024-25, have a brand new, totally revamped FAFSA that had a new processing, had new calculations in the background to help streamline everything on the online format. The Future Act was the best part of this that let it really get rolling, because most people had issues with putting tax information on the FAFSA. The Future Act allowed the Department of Ed and IRS to work together. So all you had to do on your FAFSA starting this year is hit that consent button. So it'll ask you on your FAFSA, do you consent to using the IRS data tool? If you say yes to that, the IRS puts everything that's needed for information I need to calculate what's called an SAI. We're going to go over that later. To calculate your SAI to allow us to know what we can award you. But it takes a lot of the headache that a lot of my families had in the past. Now, what is changing? So what is staying the same? Let's go there. So what is going to be the same? Parents, students, if you have your your FSA IDs, if you've had them and been using them for the last few years or just signed up, that is not going to change. All right, so you're still using that to sign in. You're still using that to sign the document at the end. If there's any loans that we're applying for, any insurance counseling, so those FSA IDs are still the same. The types of loans that are available, the types of grants that are available, those are all still the same. They have not changed. The biggest thing that I will tag into now is SAI. That is a major change, but not really. So I say that because nobody's heard of SAI unless you had financial aid in the 1980s, because that used to be what it was. SAI stands for Student Aid Index. When you fill out your FAFSA and hit submit, you used to get what's called an EFC, or an effective family contribution. Now, we don't expect families, when they see that number, to contribute that amount to college. So the amount and that name especially has been confusing for years. So the fact that that is going away is actually fantastic. I'm excited about that. But with all the changes on the FAFSA, it's now just going to be the Student Aid Index that comes out of it. It's another 3-letter acronym, so that's not changing. It's still 3 letters. But there's the calculation that goes behind the scenes when you fill out your FAFSA. That changed, and it's actually allowing more students than before that weren't eligible for certain need-based aid, things like grants, like Pell Grants, that more students should be getting more of those than before. So that is why it changed, because Congress had told us. It's changing, and it's going to be better. Okay, it will be better, but just like everything else, sometimes the federal government they don't do it right the first time. But they are working through, they are fixing things. We've seen them make great strides. The biggest thing is know that we're flexible, so we'll get through it together.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, the next question we have for you is about how long does it take to fill out the FAFSA, and what materials do you need in order to fill it out?
So with the FAFSA, the comical answer for this is normally if you're an independent student, so let's say you're 25 years old, you have no family, you're not married, it will take you 12 minutes to fill out the FAFSA. If you have your FSA ID, it is that simple. You'll hit like 5 screens and it'll say you're done. For my students that are dependent, which are going to be most of our students, so students where parents, what we call contributors now, are on the FAFSA. Well, our parents, what will happen is a student's going to go online and they're going to fill out their portion of their application. They're going to sign it at the end, but at the end, they're going to say, okay, based on your information, you need to list your parents. Are they married? Are they not married? They'll ask those simple questions to your student. And what will happen is they'll put your information at the end, then you're going to be sent an email. And as a parent, then you are going to then log in and finish your part of the section. Once they get this ball really fixed with the FAFSA application and everything is running smoothly, it should take honestly less than 30 minutes if everybody's in the same room. Your student will probably finish their section, especially if you're 18 to 23 students. You're filing a simple 1040 EZ form most of the time, and you didn't file at all. Your student will be done in about 5 minutes. The biggest thing that I urge is that take the extra 20 to read everything. I have found that there have been more instances of students emailing me saying they made a mistake and they have to make a correction. And it's mainly because they thought they read something the right way and they didn't, and they answered one incorrect answer. And it happens. But I promise you, it's a very simple form. There's usually, if there's something you're not sure on what it's asking or where am I going to find that information? Why are you asking me this? There's usually a little help icon, a little question mark beside it that you can click on that will open up a window that will provide you that information. But take your time, whether it takes you 10 minutes, whether it takes you 2 hours, just make sure to take your time, read through it. And the one thing I can say, if you have parents that are going to be on the FAFSA, try to be in the same room at the same time. Because when the student goes through and finishes theirs, and the email will go to the parents, and it will be like that. So, and then the parent can log in and finish, and you can make this more of a family expedition, because that's what it is. It's a family journey together. And it's best to be in the same room, or if you live in 2 different locations, that is okay to be online or be on the phone at the same time as you guys are doing it together. But this way, there's no confusion. There's no, oh, when did you fill out your FAFSA? Oh, you did it 2 days ago. Okay, let me go dig up my emails. But if you're doing it together, the moment you send the email, mom, dad are going to get those emails right away to finish their part as well.
And you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but the next question I had was, if you make a mistake filling out the FAFSA, how do you go back and correct it? Or can you?
Yes. So you can go back and correct your FAFSA. So they had trouble with this because they had to release their web space to be able to correct. They just went live with it recently. Okay. And when I say recently, the way that the Department of Ed or the way that most government agencies work is they do what's called soft launches. So, and they don't really tell anybody when it's going to be open or closed. So I'm going to preface with this. Most of my students that have made a mistake have been able and had no instance of being able to not get back in and make a correction. So to make a correction simply, you just go back to the same website. So it's studentaid.gov. You as a student will log in because you want your student to log in, not the parent, because the student needs to initiate because it is their application to make that correction. And the parent can go in and do their side as well, but you want the student to start that initial correction. The one instance I'm going to let you guys know now that is not known, because we talked about the known, let's talk about the unknown. I have a lot of parents reaching out to me about, say, income adjustment appeals, like I lost my job in 2023. My taxes for 23 that I just did are much different than what had to be on my FAFSA, which was 2022. People are getting me their tax information. We're reaching out, we're contacting, we're having meetings, and I see that there is a big difference, which is great. They haven't given us the access yet to make corrections for schools. That is coming. I believe it's in testing with the Department of Ed. But we're still waiting on guidance on that. So will it happen soon? Yes. Do I have a definitive like ETA? I do not. So just know if you're working with us on appeals, it will get done. I'm not really worried about, we got plenty of time, but I want to make sure that you know that we're working on it, but we're in that standstill right now.
Great, thank you. All right, the next question I have is, how does someone approach the FAFSA if the student or the family member doesn't have a social security number?
So we'll start with the student. If a student does not have a social security number, you wouldn't be able to fill out the FAFSA application. So that's where, for example, there is the VASA application. Depending on how you say it, could be VASA, VASA, or VESA. It is the same application. So if you're a Virginia in-state tuition resident, if you went to high school for the last 2 years here in Virginia, if you filed 2 years worth of Virginia tax returns, you're going to be able to qualify to be able to use it if you don't have a social security number. So that is for my DACA, undocumented, dreamers. There are certain, and I do not have the information offhand, and I will get this to everybody. There are specific visa holders that do not qualify for the VASA application. I think it's M, F, and I think it's J, I believe. But do not quote me on that. I will get that information to Mackenzie so she can get that out to everybody. So my student, if your student has a social security number, you're filing a FAFSA, whether parent has a social or not. Now, for my parents that do not, or what we were calling our contributors, basically a contributor is replacing parent one, parent two, and student spouse. A contributor is somebody that is contributing information to the FAFSA. So if you're an independent student, like if you are a young married couple, you're going to school and it's just you and your spouse, you're contributor one, spouse is contributor two. Okay. If you're a dependent student, you're a contributor. And parents, if the parents that are on your FAFSA are married, contributor one, contributor two. So everybody has a spot, and that's what contributors are. And as for parents, when you go to do this, the FSA ID used to be able to hold my parents back with this that didn't have a social security number, because one of the things that they required when you're filling out an FSA ID is you have to have a social. They changed that this year. So all of that is gone. So when you go to, for any of my parents that do not have a social, they can get an FSA ID. It's an easy process because then you can log in and be able to complete the FAFSA just like everybody else. You're no more having to do printout signature pages to mail them to the Department of Ed. None of that mess anymore. So it makes it a lot easier for everybody. So they had hiccups with that, of course, at the very beginning, December through, honestly, March. But it seems to be working now. I've had my families that I've been keeping in touch with that have had this situation, and so far, so good. Are there still going to be hiccups on certain people? I'm sure there will. But I have high hopes now that we're past at least that big hurdle. So,
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, the next question I have for you is, how does divorce or household changes affect the FAFSA, including people moving in or out of places or changes in income?
so it can change. The big thing for any change that occurs, the number one thing, we'll start with, let's say, divorce. Okay. When you as a student complete the FAFSA on the day you're submitting your FAFSA application, whoever's marital status is at that day, it's going to be that for the year. Okay. So, for example, if mom and dad are still married, okay, on January 3rd, and you filled out your FAFSA on January 3rd, and you said, I'm a dependent student, parents are married, they were been married for 3 months, and let's say in February they have a fight, they're going to get divorced. Okay, I come from divorced parents. I feel for everybody on this, but I know where this question is coming from. But since you filled out that FAFSA application saying that your parents were married on that day, it is counting it for that upcoming next academic year. Okay. So in the following next FAFSA that you complete, the next year's FAFSA, you'll say parents are separated or parents are divorced. Okay. Now, for my parents that are currently divorced, so let's say you're filling out that application, parents got divorced 2 months prior. Well, remember, the FAFSA is asking you for tax information from 2 years ago when your parents were married. That is okay. When you go to do the FAFSA, you're still going to indicate parents are divorced and whoever is supporting you. Now, it's not who you live with. The FAFSA used to be the parent that you live with. So if your parents are divorced, the parents are not married, the parents are separated, whichever parent provides the most financial support. That's a big, that actually, I should have mentioned, is one of the many big changes that occurred with this new FAFSA. Because before it used to be who you lived with for 6 months or more. So who did you reside with? Who took care of you? Now it is strictly who paid more. So if I have a parent, say for example, that has no income, but it's a divorced parent, you live with that one parent, the other parent is, for example, paying alimony and child support. That's the parent you have actually technically supposed to be putting on the FAFSA application. Just so you know. Not really my favorite change on it. I don't want to say they don't know if we don't know, but you know what I mean? It's when I take it and just go, if you have one parent, sometimes I have some parents that don't want to be on the FAFSA, and the other one is like, I'll help. Do it that way. What way works for you best, personally? But the rules do state that the parent that makes the most is the one that has to be on the FAFSA, the parent that supports you the most. Now, that other parent might make 100,000 but pays nothing to the household that you're living in with mom. Then mom is the main contributor, even if she makes less than dad. Okay, because mom is the one taking care of you, things like that. If there's no money coming in, whether it's alimony or child support, mom is the one supporting it, and you're going to put moms in. Now, when it comes to the taxes and the way that the information is supposed to translate and come over, when you select divorce on the FAFSA, your parent is already divorced. I have a feeling, because we haven't seen these yet. When these come in, we may see that the tax information comes in with everybody's tax information, mom and dad's stuff combined. From there, it's easy. We can do an appeal. So that's where you can reach out to our office and, hey, my parents got divorced before I filled out my FAFSA. But it's like if your parents filing jointly in 2022, but they're divorced currently and they were divorced before you filled out your FAFSA application, reach out to our office. Tell us, hey, my parents are divorced. I just want to make sure that my FAFSA is correct. Because, for example, if I see that information translates over and it comes over and I see that your parents' stuff is all matched, but it's all together, then what I have to do is what they call a separation of income. And that's where I can take taxes from mom and see her W-2s. And I go, okay, this is what I'm counting. I'm not counting the other parent. So I can go through and edit and update your FAFSA from there. The same goes for things when it comes down to changes of income, like an income reduction. So an income reduction appeal is another thing that our office does. And that's where, let's say, for example, a parent loses their job, a layoff. So that was big a few years ago with all the furloughs. We all remember that. When it came to the furloughs, the biggest thing that it comes down to it for our office for financially processed, remember, we have to dot every I, we have to cross every T. We have to use tax information. So I talked to one of my families today. Their parent lost their job 4 days ago. And I can't really do an appeal yet. And the reason why is because the tax year's not over. With the tax year not being over, I can't see the difference between what's happening right now and what happened in 2022. I can see how much money parents and everybody made in 2022, but I don't have that concrete backup of, okay, we made 1/3 the amount, we made half the amount this year. Now I can award things like Pell Grant or state grants or institutional funds. That's the hardest conversation my office has to have with any student or family. And it's mainly because if the loss of position, for example, was in 2023 and we can see a difference on the taxes between 23 and 22, we're good. And we can do that appeal and we can see what comes out of that. But we want to make sure that we're doing it the right way and making sure that we don't accept the main reason there are schools in the past that got burned this way. Because students would say, my parent lost their job. They lost their job, for example, in February. Okay. And let's say they were making $100,000 a year. And then the school would do an appeal. They usually waited a certain period of time, usually it's like 6 months, just to make sure no other income was earned. But then at the end of the year, they started to have to collect that next year's set of taxes. So by this time, the students already received Pell Grant, all this other money because the other parent wasn't working. One of their parents that did end up getting a job 6 months and 1 day after their appeal made $180,000 for the last 4 months of the year. And because of that, the school had to return money. And that causes, of course, a balance. And you can imagine how that conversation would go. So to stem that, to make sure that that is not a thing, the one thing that financial aid officers never want to do is give you estimates. They never want to tell you, oh, this is the estimate of what you're going to get. We try to be as factual as possible. So while for like the award letters, I know they took a while to come to you guys. And they are still generating, they're still coming. We're doing these weekly. As we're going through, we want to make certain that they are correct. We don't want to give you an award letter and then come back 2 weeks later and say, oh, my bad, we were wrong. We got the wrong information. We want to have the right information to go at you right the first time so you can be sure what you're getting is accurate.
Great. And that kind of leads perfectly into one of the questions we got from the audience, which is, once the FAFSA shows it's been approved, how long before George Mason typically has time to review it and email with their package of their results?
Oh, good. Very good question. So timeline. The way the timeline works is quite easy. So no matter if you ever touch your FAFSA, whether it's completing a correction, when everybody has done it, it hits submit. And you'll get an email from FSA saying your FAFSA is being processed. It's a very nice, lovely generic email. From that, count down 7 days. Okay, it takes it's usually anywhere from 5 to 7 business days, or sorry, not 5 to 7 business, 5 to 7 days before it reaches the ability to get to the school to be downloaded by your institution. So if you have 20 schools listed, for example, on your FAFSA, all 20 schools are going to get it about 5 to 7 days later. And then once it comes in, if it is during the week, it doesn't occur on the weekend. But if it occurs during the week, we have our Associate Director of Loan, Grant, and Awarding. We'll go through and he actually batch posts everybody that is an incoming student for this upcoming fall, getting them ready to roll, making sure that nobody has any verification requirements, making sure there's no strange anomalies, rejects, things like that. If there's any kind of problem with the FAFSA that we receive, an email will go out to the student, direct them what issue is going on. If nothing is needed, we're going to send that student within about 3 days after that occurs. we'll send them that award letter that'll say, hey, these are your award offers for the upcoming year. So it'll be nice and pretty. And the one thing is you'll also, if you're an incoming student, you're going to be getting a mailed package as well as the online, the virtual email package. The email package is going to reach you first. And the main reason is because, well, snail mail is snail mail. And you're going to get, when they actually are mailing out those award letters, you're getting the email at the same time that the award letters are going out. So award letters can take anywhere from 7 to 14 days to get by mail. We're not waiting. We've waited long enough. You guys have waited long enough. So we are forcing the email mode to go out to you much quicker. So the moment that your stuff is ready, within 2 days, you're getting an award letter.
Great. And we actually had another question of if someone's FAFSA has to be reprocessed,
Mhm.
what's the timeline for that? And what do y'all do in that process?
So with the reprocess, so I'll talk about that. This is a fun one. And I can actually preface with saying this wasn't the schools. So when FAFSA processed and they made news and everybody was kind of mad because of it, the Department of Education comes out and goes, we processed all these FAFSAs. We caught up. Everybody's finished. But 40% of them were wrong. The format was incorrect. The calculation was incorrect. So schools were getting the wrong information, which is why we didn't email anybody their award letters at first. Once they found the code that determined who needed to be reprocessed, we sent all of those students that we were able to determine who those were that we had received FAFSAs for. You guys got an email and that said, hey, your FAFSA was incorrect. We're reprocessing it. Here's the timeline. The Department of Ed, so we've sent stuff back. We've already started receiving some back. There are some groups that are taking longer than others, but we don't really know why. But out of the 32,000 plus FAFSAs our school has received this year, a total of 8,000 students were either rejected. So, for example, a parent didn't get a chance to sign it because there was some kind of hiccup. Students might have missed their signature part. That could be like an error, or somebody didn't answer some of the tax questions when asked, or you did not answer yes to that consent. So some of you guys got rejection emails, but then there was a bunch of you that got that reprocessing email. And that reprocessing is occurring. We've been told by the Department of Ed it should be finalized and everybody should be processed. Processed means they've run everybody, that within that next 7 days, all schools should have it all done by May 1. I hold that with a grain of salt. But like I said, we are flexible and we're going to make it work. And you guys don't have to worry. We're going to take care of things with you. Just be mad at them, not us. No. It's one where we are going to all get through it. That's the one thing I'm not concerned with. A lot of people are worried about things like deadlines and stuff like that. Don't worry about deadlines. Okay. Deadlines will be for next year. We'll worry about deadlines next year. There's been enough drama, I think, this year that we can all be on the same page and say, you know what, let's just do this and get it done. And we're going to all work together on it.
Well, that kind of leads perfectly into my next audience question.
Yes.
Is there a deadline, and how long is the FAFSA for 2024-25 school year available?
It's going to be out there online. So let's start with the FAFSA. The FAFSA is a form that is done every single year. Okay, it comes out. It is supposed to come out October 1 of every year for students to start filling out for their next academic school year. Okay, the FAFSA starts, technically, the start date of the FAFSA is July 1 of that year until June 30th of the following. So we have the 24-25 FAFSA. So it starts July 1, 2024, goes all the way to June 30th, 2025. On July 1, 2025, you will no longer see that FAFSA for this current year on the website. You won't be able to complete it anymore. So my opinion in terms of deadlines, there are deadlines. The biggest thing I want you to do is just get stuff done. Get it in there. Try to, if you haven't done your FSA, like if you haven't done your FAFSA yet, that's okay. Go get your FSA ID. That's first. Okay. Take your time on it. Get it done. If you've never done an FSA ID, sometimes it can take a few days for it to activate, and that's okay. So it might be 2 or 3 days while everything, because when you go to create that FSA ID, the federal Department of Education has to confirm information with many other government departments, Social Security, all these other Department of Homeland Security, things like that, to make sure that you are who you say you are so you can use that FSA ID. Because the most important thing is that when you go to use the FAFSA, remember, you can link it directly to your IRS tax returns to help it fill out your FAFSA. So that's why the importance of letting that process take shape and being patient with that. So get your FSA ID. When you do make your FSA ID and it says you're good to go, do me one favor, parents and students. Write that FSA ID password, username and password on 10 sheets of paper. Make sure you list whose ID it is. So if it's your student, if it's John Doe and Mrs. John Doe, make sure you put your names on it so you know whose is whose. Okay, because when you sign in using that one FSA ID, guess what? It pre-fills information out for that one specific contributor. So it's important to know who is who. But take those 10 sheets that now have everybody's info, put it all over the house. Put it on. So I don't urge you to put it on your phone, not very secure, but put it all over the house, put it in your safe, put it everywhere that you go, put it in that one drawer that you always find your keys in, but you don't know how they got there. Put it in that drawer, because I guarantee you next year when you go to do your FAFSA, the number one question you're going to immediately ask yourself is, what's my FSA ID? And that's, you're going to always ask, because you only need it technically 4 times over your student's undergraduate education. So it's really, really important with that. And I don't know if I answered the question. I'm so sorry. I got on a rant.
I believe you did. I believe you did.
Okay.
We do have someone asking to kind of clarify, and you might have already stated it, but clarify on the issue of a parent not having a social security number. What information will they present on the form if they don't have one?
They're going to ask for things like your I-10. So if you had to file taxes of any kind, they're going to ask you for your I-10. They give you multiple positions within the FAFSA to the FSA ID process where it says that it'll ask you, do you have a social? If you say no, it's going to give you the next option. If you don't have that option, it's going to give you the next option. There's a sequence that they're going to go through. I've had one student, the only students that I have been working with in this situation, because most of my families that don't have socials, they're very private, okay, which I completely understand in some cases. And it's one where, or they just don't, or they don't even ask for the help. But everybody that I have worked with, and there's probably been about 30 or 40 families in this situation, where mom or dad or both didn't have social, but they had an I-10. And the I-10 is what can be used to help set up and create that FSA ID. So it is something that can be used.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we have an attendee that it looks like they've been having a little bit of struggles or issues trying to submit the form. They've tried to submit it several times, but they can't figure out how to get to the next step. It just shows their status has started. So they are wondering if they get to the end of the form, they signed it, do they need to do anything else? Are they good to go? Should they contact your office for more information?
It's kind of one of those, I would love to say, call my office, I know all the answers. I don't. This year especially, okay? One of the things, if you are getting stuck right now on the FAFSA, the number one thing you want to do is screenshots. Screenshot everything of where you're getting stuck, okay? Then I want you to contact FSA, okay? It's the phone number that's there around the FAFSA as you're going through, because it says if you need help. You have the screenshots, you have things you can send to them. That's how they've been able to find out all of these bugs and these issues. It's because of students like you that are seeing something that's not working right. They can guide you through and say, hey, we see that this is clicked, or hey, you know what? Great catch. That was a code that we didn't know, and we can correct that. But I would take screenshots of what you're seeing, get in touch with FSA, tell them exactly where you're at, what you're trying to do. They'll be able to see, for example, if you have things saved, they should be able to see that in real time. They should be able to look up, because they have access to your FAFSA information to look at with you, to mirror with you, to be able to see maybe what you're selecting. Now, are you going to have some issues with hold times? You will. I'm not going to lie. It's not pretty. Even when students talk about calling my office, I try to counteract that with just telling them don't do it. I don't want anybody to be on hold. So whenever it comes to like my office, if you ever need me, email. Okay, always email our office. You will get a quicker response. If you sit on hold, we have very lovely hold music. But I want to make sure you get answered in your own time. So with most of my students and stuff like that, they have questions at night. Same with my parents, usually when our office is already closed. So email. As long as they have your name and your G number. If I don't know the answer, we're going to find out who does, and we're going to do it together. So
Thank you. Our next question from the crowd: if parents are married and file jointly, do you need separate FSA IDs?
I would set them up. Okay. I would have anybody that is a contributor sign up for an FSA ID. One of the things that we were told when they were initially creating this FAFSA, now, like I said, this may change next year. Okay. In which case, I think it'll be better. I had instances where they were talking about if you're married filing jointly, there's parents have been married for the last 10 years, they filed taxes for the last 10 years together. It's the perfect thing that only one parent would need to be listed as a control that needed to sign the FAFSA. I have heard numerous instances where that is not the case, where both people needed to sign it. So just for safety's sake, mom, dad, everybody, anybody that's a contributor on there, everybody get one. So my independent students that are married now, okay, you are going to have an FSA ID and your spouse is going to have an FSA ID. Just because I'm waiting to see what they do now for this year as they clean up everything to some of these hiccups, but also to see really what they're going to do next year. Now, next year may be a new ball game. Next year, they may figure this out and they might say, yep, everybody is married in this household. We only need one, either mom or dad to sign in to sign this. That's all we'll need. For some of the contributors, I think the reason why is because they were with some parts of the IRS tax return portion that was transferring over. The reason they wanted both contributors to come in was one parent, for example, might have had a business. So having a Schedule C, or and they having the SE and all the other stuff and the K1s and all that good stuff. And the other parent, worked for Mason, so it was two very different positions, but it's two very different types of income that were coming into the household, different ways they were taxed. So they were having both contributors log in. And I think that was the reason why they did that. But I'm hoping that they fix that for next year where that's not going to be needed, especially if it's a married filing joint return.
Great. All right. So the next one we have is the new FAFSA form appears to have provisions for the parents to provide an address located only in the United States. What happens when the student is an American citizen and the parents are not domiciled in the States and therefore do not have a U.S. address?
So with that, that's interesting because for the address that matters the most is the student. The address has to be a US-based address for the student to receive aid. For the parents, it really doesn't matter. I have a lot of my parents that live in England, India, Germany, Africa, different countries, Ghana, especially. So there's addresses that are not US based. I haven't come across that. It comes up more when, for example, a parent cannot apply for a Parent Plus loan if they live in a different country. You can't receive aid if your address is not US based. Okay. For example, the main reason, think of it this way: if you borrow a loan, the US government really doesn't reach out past its borders to collect money. They'll deal with countries when it comes to imports and exports, but they're not going to do that when it comes to student loans. So that's where having the US based address. So I have a feeling that's more tied to things like Parent Plus loans and things like that, rather than anything else. But I have not heard that issue, but I am going to write that down to try to follow up on.
Perfect. This next one is, do you have to check the consent box for parents' tax info?
Always. You're always going to, when that question comes up. So I had to talk to my son this week, and this is actually perfect segue. I had to talk to my son last week about what a rhetorical question was. A teacher asked him, would you like to retake this test? You could have done better. And my son said, nah, I'm good. And I was like, no, don't do that. Let me teach you what your teacher meant. So I had to teach him this whole thing and talking existential crises with my son who's 9, and teaching him about rhetorical questions. This is the one rhetorical question on the FAFSA. You have to answer yes. If you answer no, your FAFSA will be rejected, and I can't offer aid. So always answer yes to that question. If you did answer yes or answered no to that question, you can go back and make a correction and change it to yes and so resubmit your FAFSA and it'll come in valid. Okay, so it'll come into us as a good FAFSA. But yes, that is the one funny rhetorical question. I wish it didn't even have that. It should just have, this is a consent, you have to check this, otherwise your FAFSA will be bad. And that's really what it should say, but it's government. They like to, spend 5 paragraphs talking about nonsense. So yes, check yes to that box.
Great, thank you. All right, next one is someone's student included their 529 balance on their portion of the FAFSA, and it says, and I included it on the parent portion because it is in their name. Should my student go back in and remove that information from his portion?
Yes. Yes. So here's also one of the changes. So any of my parents that had 529s, they made this change this last year. And this helps my parents, especially if you have parents of multiple children. Okay. And you have multiple 529 accounts. All right. Because when it comes down to it, whoever the owner of the account is, so it's a 529 account, the owner is not going to be the student. The owner is going to be the parent, or it's a grandparent, it's not an uncle. It's whoever is the owner of that account. That's who needs to claim that. So if the student claimed that in this case, student needs to go back in, log in, make a correction, and remove that amount. Now, for my parents that have multiple 529 plans, I'm going to make you happy. Okay. The way that it used to be, you had to count all of your kids' 529 money you haven't spent yet, that you have been saving, and you had to put it as a total. So if you had 2 kids and they had 25 grand each, you're counting $50,000 in assets, right? 1 kid, whoever has the most, that's all you have to put. So if you have a kid that has 10 and a kid that has 9,999, you're not putting 19,999, you're putting 10,000. 1 kid, that's all you got to put. So it makes my parents much, much happier because it actually shows a more realistic version of what we have in terms of our assets towards an educational cost. This was the big win I think a lot of us in the financial aid world had pushed for. So yay for my parents. But yes, that'll help for anybody that has multiple children in school.
Great. Another question is, how does someone know if their student should mark themselves as dependent or independent?
The FAFSA will walk you through very cleanly, and it will ask very specific questions as the student is going through and finishing their stuff. And it'll say, are you born before January 1? And basically saying that you're 24. Now, I'm old now, so I'm not going to do math for tonight, but it asks January 1, 2000 something. You people are so young. It's going to make sure you're 24. If you answer yes to 24, you're independent. It'll say, are you married? Are you an active duty military? Are you a veteran? And a veteran is not National Guard unless you've been deployed, or unless you finished your whole service of 6 years. It'll ask if you have legal dependents, if you have children you're supporting. If you answer yes to any of those questions, or are you a graduate student, graduate or professional student? Graduate, professional is like a PhD student, for example, in this case, or doing a certificate program. If you answer yes to those questions, you're independent. If you answer no to all those questions, you are dependent. And that's what it's trying to tell you. There is a question that's on the FAFSA that a lot of our students got wrong, because it says, if you can't find your parents' information, you can select unsubsidized only. And all these people started selecting that box. Here's the problem with that. The student's only going to get an unsubsidized loan. It's going to be one word that tricked me out tonight. But it's going to be for the minimal amount. And there's going to be no grants, no scholarships, nothing like that, because you're not going to qualify for any need-based aid. So if you did that, please go back, change that unsubsidized loan only box to no. And then it'll ask you for your parents' information to send them the information so then the parent can log in and finish the FAFSA to make you eligible for other types of aid. Because once that unsubsidized loan, that's, for example, let's say that a student is trying to be independent. If a parent no longer claims a student on taxes, if a student is totally self-sufficient, they make 25, 30,000, 50,000 a year. If a student lives on their own, does not count. Oh, and if a parent just doesn't want to provide information, it doesn't matter. The student is dependent. Okay. The IRS has very different definitions before who is dependent, who is independent. So we all know that once you're 18, IRS goes, you're independent, you can be independent unless your parents claim you, and then you're dependent. You know, it's always that fun little caveat. Well, the Department of Ed made it very clear, and this is the one thing that has not also changed, is that usually it's about 23, 24, or you're a grad student, or you get married or you have kids. That's when you become independent. So I have had students that were dependent when they started. They got married at some point throughout their college career. Then they got divorced, maybe during their college career. Then they went from being dependent to independent back to dependent. So I've had it happen. I have seen it all. But yeah, when you go through the FAFSA application, it's very, very specific. It's going to go through those very specific questions. Just make sure, like I said, if you take your time and you read everything, you won't check accidentally yes to a box you didn't need to check yes to.
Great. We have someone that's piggybacking off of the 529 question, and they were wondering, how does it work for GI Bill aid and who claims it, the student or the family member?
You're not going to claim it at all. GI Bill aid is different. Okay, so when you have BAH and you have that stuff, okay, so for example, on the FAFSA, there is a question that asks you about combat pay. This is a similar thing that you would see on your LES if you're military, okay, if you served overseas in a combat environment. So what it does is it takes information from what you made in terms of your wages that you reported on the FAFSA, and it deducts it because it's supposed to be a tax deductible thing. But remember, it is for combat pay. So it is not for your job at CVS. A lot of people will accidentally put that information in. We have a wonderful military services office within Mason. So anybody that is going to be utilizing your VA funds, whether it's going to be through the Yellow Ribbon program, whether it's your traditional VA benefits, REAP, etc., the 720 choice, they can walk you through the whole process. It's not really going to affect your financial aid to a point. There's certain programs where with those funds that are going to come in count as a resource. So if you're eligible for things like Pell Grant, things like that, you're going to get Pell. We're not going to do that. It may affect some of the state grants we may be able to offer if you qualified before. You may not qualify after, just because those other funds are coming in to help pay towards tuition only, which deducts off of what available room we have to fill the gap with. So the email address, so somebody can put it in the chat. It's military@gmu.edu. That's their email. Drop them a line. You have any VA funds, VA questions, etc. They are the office to get with, and they will work with you with everything.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next question is, on the parent side, do I need to provide the exact amount of money I have on my investment account?
So it's what you're supposed to do. It is what you're supposed to do. So there are certain questions you'll be asked on the FAFSA, like, does the total amount exceed this? If it doesn't, you put 0. Or you would just say the word no, because there's a checkbox for yes or no. Because if you answer yes to a question, you got to fill out numbers. So it's one where if you have investments, you have assets, you're supposed to enter in what's in your checking and savings account at the day you complete the FAFSA. So it's not like, for example, oh, at the end of this month, I'm going to have no money. It's whatever. If you're doing it on the 15th of the month and in your checking and savings account, let's say there's $120, you're going to put $120. That's what you'd put down. That is technically what you're supposed to put down. So I will leave it at that.
Right. Someone else asked, my student's FAFSA says it was submitted on January 2nd, 2024, and the date release number. What does the date release number mean?
So repeat that one more time for me.
Yeah, it says on their FAFSA that it has their date that they submitted it and then the date release number. So they're asking, what does the date release number mean?
That I honestly have no idea. I'm going to be bluntly honest. I don't know. So I know that, for example, students were submitting FAFSAs and able to starting. Now I say some, because some, the 5 or 10 that I've actually met or emailed me that did it on December 31st. because there was a window, I think 30 minutes that people could fill out their FAFSA, but they went nowhere. Okay, so I'm thinking that the release date is when they actually processed the FAFSA, because they were collecting everybody's FAFSAs and they were running them through these gamuts and they were going, oh, is this working? And they kept finding that as they were running the FAFSAs that it was not working correctly. So they never fully processed it. So they basically went on shelf and was on hold. Then when they actually started processing them, and it was the middle of March. It was right around the middle of March because we started getting them late March. Some schools started getting them like I think the very last week of March. And when they started processing, they went all the way back to the very beginning and they started doing it from the date that they were filed. And they started going back on December 31st and they started going the 1st of January, all those. So it's possible that that date release was the date that it actually got processed. For Mason, we don't care what that date is. The date that we actually care about is the date it was submitted. So just so you know, when it comes to, because everybody talks, every school has a priority deadline. Okay. We're going to be very flexible with our priority deadline this year. I'm going to start with that. Okay. There were so many issues with the FAFSA this year. We're just going to basically give money out, I think, until we're out. If you qualify for it, we're going to give it to you, whatever we can, until it's gone. But when it comes to like next year, we'll try to stick to our priority date. It's usually March 1, just so you guys know. Unless the Department of Ed says we're going to go through this again. Let's all hope not. So I'm hoping that it's a lot better next year too. So
Great. All right. Well, we got through a little over half the questions, but I know there are a few that are left. So if you could talk a little bit about how people get in contact with you or your office, what's the best mode of communication? You talked a little bit about email, and they
yes.
meetings with your office, all of that great stuff.
So I'm not going to lie, it's going to be a crazy summer. No matter what's going to be a crazy summer. The first thing I want to provide is our email address. Okay, it's FINAID, FINAID @gmu.edu. When you email us, it is very, very important. I need your name, your G number, very, very important number. No tax information, please. No social security numbers, please. It's email, therefore it's not 100% secure for you, so no vital information. No PII is what they call. All right, but when you send us an email first. Let's see what kind of questions you have. If you have one question, if you have 10 questions, send us questions. If you email us, you come up with a question later, guess what you're going to do? You're going to send another email. Like I said, I don't want you to be on hold, so don't call. I don't want to sound rude, but it's one, I just don't want you to be on hold. I mean, like I said, most of my families and students have questions that are in off times. So everybody has a phone. Everybody emails, everybody texts, shoot us an email. Okay. If you're on campus, we're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We see walk-ins, so we can see if you come in. Summer is crazy for us. Just to fair warning, if you email us, give us a day or two really to get back to you. You might even get a message saying it's 7 to 10 days to get back to you. The reason why we're processing aid for students that are starting or doing classes that are continuing students, they're doing classes this summer. And it requires a manual touch from every financial aid counselor. So it's one that we are very heavy duty on that, along with, of course, getting you guys into the class start and getting that done as well. So it may take us a hot minute to get back to you by email, but we will respond. So just keep emailing, keep asking questions. Like I said, the one thing I don't want you to do is just be on hold.
Great. And then before we close out, did you have any last pieces of information, advice, anything that you think, anything else that people need to know before we close out?
My best piece of advice, okay, for every student. Okay, so you'll hear me talk about this when you see me at orientation. With anything that any office at Mason does, we don't call you. If we call you, you're in trouble. Okay, which means we've been emailing you a lot. We will email you. That is our primary way we will communicate. Okay, so no to just keep checking your email. Once you're able to set up your George Mason email account, your gmu.edu email, the moment you can, please do it. Set it up so it gets sent to your phone so you can read it every day, even before you start classes, because you're going to get communication from all the different offices that are important for you. My office of financial aid, there's the student accounts office, there's the billing office, military services, if you're have any VA benefits, things like that you're looking at coming in with. If you're with disability services, anything like that, that is a primary way to kind of help weed out that communication and away from your home email. Most of the emails we're sending you now are going to Gmail or Yahoo accounts or Hotmail, like mine, and they're going to the spam or junk folder or promotions folder if you have Gmail. So you're missing some of those communications that might be coming out from school. So just to kind of check those folders real quick. You might see some missed stuff. But set up that email, check it often, but always, always, always ask questions. Okay. If you don't know the answer to something, that's why we're here. Okay. It's not something where I want you to sit back and go, I don't know what it is. And then you just leave it at that. That's not an answer. Okay. That's like being sitting at a stoplight. Which way are you going to go, left or right? Well, you're not going to sit at a stoplight. Ask a question. So shoot us an email. Say, hey, Dan, I don't know what I did. I don't know where I am, but I need help. And here's where I'm at right now. And let us help guide you the way. Okay. You're not expected to know every bit of the mess and what the Department of Ed and Congress did to all of us 4 years ago. Don't worry about it. You focus on getting the FSA ID, you get that FAFSA submitted, you get stuff situated, ask us questions as we go along. We're here from you before you start school, Mason, through the time you're here, and even after you're done. So just know that you always have somebody you can come to and just say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, or I have a question. I'm not 100% certain. Let us get that together for you.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Dan. I think that's all we have time for. So I appreciate you being here, providing all this information. For everyone who has attended, we put the financial aid email in the chat, as well as the military services email, as well as our emails for the family programs team. If you forget everything that happened or who we talked to, and you just need kind of a liaison to these offices, feel free to give us an email as well, and we can pass you along to these amazing people. Also a quick plug for our family's website. Again, if you forget our email, it's on the family's website. Just type it into Google and you'll find it. But that is all we have time for. Thank you again, Dan and Camille and Kara, for being here. And I hope you all have a great rest of your night.